Finally, our new house is complete and we are moving in a week. Meanwhile, my husband made a surprising statement. My mom and them have packed quite a bit too. Huh? Are your mother-in-law and them moving too? What are you talking about? It's obvious that they're moving to the new house with us. What? What do you mean? My name is Riley. I'm a 34-year-old company employee. I've always prioritized work over romance. As a result, I was able to get promoted early on and was entrusted with various jobs and positions of responsibility. I work for a pharmaceutical company, and my main job is to visit medical professionals such as doctors and provide, collect, and transmit information on the quality, efficacy, and safety of pharmaceuticals. I'm really busy flying around to various hospitals every day, and even when I get back to the office, I'm busy preparing presentations for new drugs for doctors and compiling materials. I'm such a workaholic that my parents have been telling me to go on blind dates with anyone who's good, but I always refuse by saying, I don't have time for that. I mean, blind dates one after another. I don't want to do anything so indecent. However, I'm starting to wonder if it's okay to be single for the rest of my life. My friends around me are starting to get married one after another. Let's travel a lot as easygoing single friends. My close friend who I talked about earlier is now a mother of 2. Although I still believe that marriage is not everything in life, the fact remains that I'm starting to feel anxious about whether it's okay to end my life without experiencing marriage. It was then that I met Charles, who later became my husband. My friend, who heard that I was anxious, immediately held a group date for me, and that's where I met Charles for the first time. Charles is 29 years old, 5 years younger than me, and seems to work as a web designer. He's also the type to prioritize work, and he said he was often rejected because his love life didn't go well. I'm just like you, I thought, and I felt a strange sense of closeness to him. We hit it off right away, and our relationship began. He understood my desire to prioritize work, so we only met when we could meet at the right time, and it was very easy to get along with him. He seemed to be working hard at his job, and he gave me a very serious impression, so I thought I might be able to marry him. He had also been told by his parents that it was time to start thinking about marriage, and he had been approached with the idea of a blind date. I felt that he was suitable for me because I felt that there were some similarities between his environment and mine. After about a year of dating, we got married. My parents were very happy that I got married, and my mother even burst into tears. I think she was really happy because she cried when I told her about my marriage and at the wedding. Thus began my married life with my husband, but I immediately had a problem. It was the existence of my parents-in-law. Since my parents-in-law's home was about a 10-minute walk from our home, we were often called over. It was always my mother-in-law who called us over, and it felt like she was trying to bully me while seeing her son. My mother-in-law often makes sarcastic remarks to me that my husband and father-in-law don't notice, and she makes me do housework by giving me some excuse. Riley, my back hurts a little. Can you wipe the floor? Huh? Oh, yes. Then please do the first and second floors and the hallway. What? And another person who troubles me is my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law has a bad mouth to begin with, and she says bad things about me regardless of whether my husband or father-in-law is around. Riley seems like a boring and dull woman. Although my husband and father-in-law do warn my sister-in-law, she does whatever she wants without paying attention to them. I want to eat something sweet. Riley, go buy it for me. Oh, that's perfect. Please buy the ingredients for dinner while you're at it. I wondered why I had to do it, but at first, I thought it would be better not to rebel against my parents-in-law and cause trouble. However, that only made my mother-in-law and sister-in-law more arrogant. The two of them started harassing me at every opportunity. Since then, I have completely lost my desire to go to my parents-in-law's home. I told my husband that I didn't want to go. Well, I'm not saying you have to come. While my husband said that, he was also expressing his dissatisfaction. They're my family, so please get along with them. If my mother-in-law and sister-in-law had been kind, we could have gotten along. Since my husband didn't try to force me to go, I was able to avoid going to my parents-in-law's house for a while, but I couldn't refuse to go during New Year's because I usually decline. But when I went to my parents-in-law's house, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law bullied me as if they had gotten a new toy. Since I only see them once or twice a year, I had to endure it by telling myself that I would get through it somehow. My married life with my husband would have been close to my ideal if it weren't for my parents-in-law. Since he knew that I liked my job, he let me work overtime and shared the housework with me. It was really nice that he understood my work. Also, my husband supported my dream. That was to build my own house. This has been my dream since I was a child. Well, even though my husband supported me, I decided to build a house with only the money I saved, so there was no financial assistance. So, it's more like he understands me than supports me. I had saved most of the money for my house from the part-time job I had since I was a student. I think one of the reasons why I was able to prepare enough funds at this age is that I was able to save a considerable amount of money every month because my salary was quite good. Finally, I reached the necessary amount of funds for my own house, so I immediately asked a construction company. I was able to convey my wishes smoothly because I had researched various things such as the floor plan and design for a long time. I'm thinking of making this Charles's workroom. Web design jobs often allow telecommuting, and this place has good sunlight and a nice view outside, so I think it will be calming. That's a great idea. I'm really happy. Thank you. Our new house is quite far from my parents-in-law's house, and my mother-in-law and sister-in-law probably won't be able to visit us very often. I waited excitedly for the house to be completed. Finally, our new house is complete and we are moving in a week. Meanwhile, my husband made a surprising statement. My mom and them have packed quite a bit too. Huh? Are your mother-in-law and them moving too? What are you talking about? It's obvious that they're moving to the new house with us. What? What do you mean? What are you talking about? The new house is the house we're buying. What? What does that mean? Why are your mother-in-law and them moving into my house? Because we talked about the new house, and they said they wanted to live there too. What? Why did they decide that on their own? I can't believe it. What's wrong with that? They're my family. You may not have noticed, but your mother-in-law and sister-in-law were bullying me. So it's impossible for us to live together. Even after I said this, my husband didn't understand and said something unbelievable. Stop being so selfish. Don't be so demanding. What? My mom and them said that you were the one with the bad attitude and they were having trouble with you. They just wanted you to be a good wife. Did you believe that? That's enough. You're really not listening to me. You're like a child even though you're older. Anyway, we'll give the new house to my parents. If you go against it, then we'll get a divorce. What? Okay, let's do that. I'm serious. I'm going to my parents' house today, so you stay home alone and reflect on your actions. Saying that, my husband went to his parents' house. My love for my husband cooled instantly. In the end, it was a child born from that mother. His fundamentally selfish personality must be the same. The next day, my husband returned home with a grin on his face. Have you reflected on your actions? Who is supposed to reflect on what? Is it okay to say that? Here, it's a divorce form. I've already filled out my part. I told you, I'm serious. If you don't reflect on your actions, we'll get a divorce. Can you get remarried at your age? So don't be stubborn like an idiot and listen to me. My mother and them said they'll forgive you. I understand. Good. If you've learned your lesson, don't go against me again. I can't believe I didn't see through my husband's true nature until now. Maybe he felt like he had obtained something valuable, a new house, and his true self came out. It seems that my husband is the type to become arrogant when he succeeds. I'm glad I found out before we moved in together. I immediately submitted the divorce papers to the court. We are no longer a couple, and there is no obligation to let my parents-in-law into my home. Luckily, my husband was staying at his parents' house for a few days, supposedly to make me reflect on my actions. So I was able to move all my belongings to my new house first. The new house is already ideal, and every part of the house is a place that makes my heart flutter. I replaced the furniture and appliances with carefully selected ones, so I feel happy just being in this space. While this was happening, my ex-husband came to visit me. When I looked at the intercom, it seemed that my parents-in-law and sister-in-law were with him. Oh, I forgot to tell him that I had submitted the divorce papers. When I answered the intercom, my ex-husband became irritated and told me to open the door quickly. Sorry, but that's impossible. What? What are you talking about? Open the door quickly. You moved out on your own without telling anyone. What are you trying to do? I'm sorry. I forgot to tell you. I'll forgive you, so open the door quickly. I told you, that's impossible. You. What I forgot to tell you is that I submitted the divorce papers. We're not a couple anymore. So you can't come into this house. What? That means I submitted the divorce papers you brought. We're not a couple anymore. So you can't come into this house. What the hell? Hey, Charles. What's going on? What's this about a divorce? Didn't you guys talk about living together? Even if you were divorced, the house is the property of the couple, isn't it? Why is the wife occupying it? That's right. My son has the right to live here too. Charles, didn't you explain it properly? This house was paid for entirely by me and is in my name. No. Even through the intercom, I could tell that my ex-parents-in-law and ex-sister-in-law were arguing. Hey, Charles. You said that let's come to your house. What's going on? Nothing. Anyway, that's how it is. Can you please leave now? Don't mess with us. Why do we have to listen to you? If you stay any longer, I'll call the police. What? The police. The word police made my ex-parents-in-law completely scared. I'm sorry, Riley. We'll leave, so don't call the police. Saying that, my ex-father-in-law got into the car with my ex-mother-in-law and ex-sister-in-law and left. As for my ex-husband and his family, they seem to have met a tragic end. My ex-father-in-law questioned my ex-husband and learned about the bullying I received from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. My ex-father-in-law was appalled and divorced my ex-mother-in-law and cut off contact with my ex-husband and ex-sister-in-law. By the way, they had already put their house up for sale because they thought they could move into my new house. As a result, my ex-mother-in-law and ex-sister-in-law, who were abandoned by my ex-father-in-law, had no choice but to rely on my ex-husband, who was taking care of them while being scolded by them for being my fault. I hope they can live together and take responsibility for each other in their poor life. On the other hand, I'm living very comfortably in my new house and often invite my parents and friends over to spend a good time. I do want to fall in love again, but now that I have a new house, I'll be careful not to get involved with strange people. Thank you for watching until the end. How was today's story? If you like, please subscribe to my channel. See you in the next story. You're really bad at cooking and you don't have any good qualities. What are you doing? I worked so hard to make this, I couldn't stand my daily harassment anymore, so I asked my husband to tell his mother to stop harassing me. You should do something about it yourself. However, my husband didn't support me at all and said it was not his problem. I had no allies around me. I finally broke down from stress and had to be hospitalized. I thought to myself, I'd rather not continue this painful life. While I was in the hospital, I began to think about something. I got married 2 years ago. I want to live with Madison forever. Please marry me. Alexander, my same-aged husband, proposed to me saying that. We are colleagues working in the same food company. I loved him so much and was really happy when he proposed to me. Dad. I was proposed to. I'm really happy. I see, that's good. Be happy. When I reported to my father that I was proposed to, he cried and was happy for me. I wish Mom could have seen me in my wedding dress too, I muttered while looking at a photo of my late mother that was visible from the living room. My mother died in a traffic accident when I was young. Thinking of my father crying and my mother, I almost cried too. A month later, we started our newlywed life in a new apartment. I was so happy that every day of my newlywed life with my husband was fun and fulfilling. We talked about enjoying our newlywed life for a while, so we don't plan to have children yet. However, such a happy life did not last long. When 2 years had passed since I started my married life with my husband, my father-in-law died of acute myocardial infarction. From there, my happy married life began to fall apart. I'm worried about leaving Mom alone after Dad's death. Can't you live with us in our house? Even if you say that suddenly. Can't Maverick take care of her? My husband has one younger brother named Maverick, but he lives far away after getting married, so he left it to my husband. You're the only one I can ask for help. Okay. I don't have a bad impression of my mother-in-law and she hasn't interfered with me, so I'm okay with living together. I didn't have any bad impressions of my mother-in-law and I wasn't worried about living with her. I'm glad Madison said that. I don't want to leave Mom alone, so can you quit your job and take care of her? We won't be able to handle it if something happens and we're both out working, right? I didn't feel like quitting my job, but I couldn't refuse my husband's request. So I agreed to quit my job and live with my mother-in-law. 1 month later, we moved to my parents-in-law's house. My mother-in-law said, I'm telling you, I don't think someone like you who has been working even after getting married can do anything properly at home. I'll train you thoroughly. As soon as I entered my parents-in-law's house, I was told that by my mother-in-law. I laughed bitterly at the time, but as my mother-in-law said, I ended up being bullied by her thoroughly. For about a week after moving, my mother-in-law was quiet without saying anything, but recently she has started to pick on my cleaning and laundry. Hey! You can't clean at all. The dust is there. What are you looking at? If you don't separate the laundry by color, it will bleed, won't it? Have you been living without knowing that? That night, I served dinner to my mother-in-law as usual. What is this tasteless dish? I'm not sick. You really can't do anything. My mother-in-law complained about the food I made and went to the kitchen, throwing away the dishes I made one after another. What are you doing? It's a waste to work hard and make it. You can say that after serving such a tasteless dish. You can't feed Alexander such a dish. No matter how much you don't like the dish, you don't have to throw it away. If you don't like the dish so much, you should make it yourself. I was angry with my mother-in-law as I watched the discarded food. The next day, I opened the laptop in the living room to do web writing work that I could do at home. What are you doing with a computer? You're a housewife, so if you have time to do that, why don't you clean? My mother-in-law seems to think that I'm not working and is saying sarcastic things from the side. Actually, I'm working. I get paid even though it's small. You should leave the earnings to Alexander. Hurry up and clean. I can save the household budget by earning my own pocket money, but why doesn't my mother-in-law understand? With a frustrating feeling, I started cleaning as my mother-in-law said without saying anything back. The next morning. My 3 friends are coming to this house today, so please prepare dinner. What? Alexander and I were going to go out from noon to night because it's his day off today. You're free anytime, aren't you? Besides, my friends want to meet Alexander, so I made it today. No, but... What? Are you going to talk back? Who do you think you're living in this house thanks to? In the end, I had to make dishes to serve to my mother-in-law's friends that day instead of going out with my husband. So, in the evening, my mother-in-law's friends came to my parents-in-law's house. I briefly greeted my mother-in-law's friends and carried the dishes to the table in the living room. Today, when I told Alexander's wife that you were coming, she suddenly got angry. She's really a troublesome person. My mother-in-law was saying sarcastic things in a voice that I could hear on purpose. I was hoping that my husband would protect me since he was there. Is that true? I'm sorry for my mother's friend too. I'll talk to her strictly later. My husband seemed to believe my mother's words and thought that I was the only one who was wrong, instead of protecting me. Why can't he understand such a lie? What did he see around me while living together? I don't have anyone on my side. I wanted to leave the place right away with that thought. It was at that moment. My phone rang, and when I looked at it, it was my brother-in-law, Maverick, who had called me. Hello? What's up, Maverick? My brother-in-law said, it seems like you said something terrible to my mother's friend. It's my mother's house, so what's wrong with letting her do what she likes? Besides, didn't you come to my mother's house to take over the house? He shouted at me unilaterally and hung up the phone. My brother-in-law has also begun to side with my mother-in-law since my father-in-law's death, and he believes that what my mother-in-law says is absolutely correct. My mother-in-law seems to be spreading false rumors to my brother-in-law, and he called me angry about it. I lost the will to argue and decided to ignore my brother-in-law's calls because he only complains when I answer. I was yelled at by my brother-in-law and abandoned by my husband, and I had become completely lethargic, like a housekeeper who just does what she's told without a smile until my mother-in-law's friend leaves. I'm really tired today. I'm going to bed. I was so tired that I got into bed and tried to sleep, but then my husband came into the bedroom and spoke to me. Did you really get angry when you heard that my mother's friend was coming? Of course not. Then why did my mother say that? If you believe only what your mother says, that's fine. You don't listen to me anyway. What's with that attitude? That's enough. My husband slammed the bedroom door and went out somewhere. I couldn't believe my husband either, so I cried in bed. I must have fallen asleep crying. When I realized it, it was the next morning. Without talking to my husband, I saw him off to work and returned to my bedroom to start my work at home. My mother-in-law still gets in the way when I'm on the computer. She's really an idle person who comes all the way to my bedroom to say sarcastic things. What are you doing that's so trivial again? I'm in the middle of a business meeting with a client, so could you please be quiet? Who do you think you are, acting so high and mighty? You can't even earn a decent living. Saying that, my mother-in-law picked up the air conditioner remote control in my bedroom and threw it at me. Ow. What are you doing? It's because you're always on the computer. Why does she keep complaining when I do the housework every day? If she complains so much, she should do the housework herself. If it's allowed, I want to punch my mother-in-law as hard as I can. Gradually, dark emotions began to well up inside me. Even the business partner heard my mother-in-law shouting at me, and in the end, the business meeting was postponed because it couldn't continue any longer. I was doing so well with my work. I told you not to disturb me. Finally, it's over. Now go ahead and do the laundry and cleaning like you always do. My mother-in-law left the bedroom without any remorse. My husband didn't side with me either, and I was exhausted from being bullied by my mother-in-law every day. How long will this life continue? I can't take it anymore. I'll never forgive my mother-in-law. The next morning, I went to the washstand to wash my face. What is this bruise? I noticed a large blue-black bruise on my left cheek when I looked in the mirror. It was where the remote control that my mother-in-law threw hit me yesterday. Oh, you're up. What's wrong with your face? Yesterday, the remote control that you threw hit me and it turned into a big bruise. Don't blame others like that. You probably hit it while you were sleeping. My mother-in-law said that, but that's absolutely not true. Blood came out when the remote control hit me. Anyway, do the housework quickly today. What? I got a bruise from an injury like this. I was so angry with my mother-in-law that my stomach was boiling. I couldn't take it anymore and was about to talk back to my mother-in-law when. Excuse me, I need to go to the bathroom. I felt sick and ran to the bathroom, pushing my mother-in-law aside. After vomiting, I looked into the toilet and saw that the water was bright red. I vomited blood. At first, I couldn't understand what had happened when I saw the scene, but this color was clearly the color of blood. I thought that I couldn't leave this alone and went to the hospital after leaving the bathroom. I'm sorry, but I'm going to the hospital, so please take care of the housework. I asked my mother-in-law to do the housework for me, but she refused. Why do I have to do it for you? You're not that sick to go to the hospital. Don't use a fake illness. I knew she would say that anyway. Ignoring my mother-in-law's words, I hurriedly left my parents-in-law's house. I could ignore my mother-in-law, but I couldn't ignore my own body. What if I had a serious illness? What if I had cancer? With my heart pounding, I took the bus to the hospital. When I arrived at the hospital, which was about 15 minutes away from my parents-in-law's house, I was immediately examined by a doctor. It's a stomach ulcer. Since you vomited blood, let's hospitalize you and treat you with medication. A stomach ulcer? What's the cause? Do I need surgery? Stress and irregular eating habits are the cause. Recently, some people recover with medication treatment, so let's see how it goes. After being explained by the doctor and hearing that it wasn't a life-threatening illness if treated properly, I was relieved. If I had to stay in the hospital, I wouldn't be bullied by my mother-in-law for a while. Fortunately, there was no serious problem with my health, and it was lucky for me not to have to see my mother-in-law. It was decided that I would be hospitalized for about 2 weeks, and when I contacted my husband, he brought my mother-in-law with him and brought me clothes. Thank you for coming all the way here. I'm glad you brought clothes for me. A stomach ulcer? Well, take your time to recover. My husband said that to me, but my mother-in-law said something heartless to me while I was hospitalized. It's pathetic to fall down with a stomach ulcer. You're a bad wife for leaving the house for 2 weeks. I'm stressed because of you. I wanted to tell her to get out of here right now, but I gritted my teeth and laughed at my mother-in-law's words. My husband and mother-in-law left the hospital within 10 minutes of visiting me. On days other than that day, neither my husband nor my mother-in-law came to visit me, and I was able to think about various things alone. Can I continue living with my husband like this? My husband, who doesn't protect me at all from my mother-in-law's bullying, and my mother-in-law, who continues to be arrogant because I don't say anything back. Maybe it's better for me to get a divorce. Gradually, the word divorce began to come to mind. A week after hospitalization began, my father came to visit me in my hospital room. Hey, are you feeling okay? Thank you for coming all the way here. It was far, wasn't it? After chatting with my father for a while, I told him that I had been thinking about getting a divorce lately. I've been thinking about getting a divorce lately. I'm just so tired. If you want to get a divorce, I don't mind. You can come back home. You've been living with just the two of us since you were young, so it's okay. My father didn't deny my decision to get a divorce and said so with a smile. Seeing my father's attitude, the worries I had been holding on to were suddenly resolved. Thank you, Dad. I'm going to get a divorce. I had been hesitant for a long time, but thanks to my father, I felt like I could make it even if I got a divorce. I'm tired of living under my mother-in-law's thumb. So, the day of my discharge arrived. I'll come pick you up today. When I left the hospital, my husband had come to pick me up as he had said in his email. Why is he suddenly being so kind? Is there something behind it? I got into my husband's car, suspicious, but grateful. Thank you for coming to pick me up. It's fine. I actually wanted Madison to come back as soon as possible. What do you mean? My mother has been pushing all the housework on me because Madison isn't here, so that's what it is. I thought my husband had been thinking about me while I was in the hospital. I was wrong. I'm definitely going to get a divorce from this guy. After hearing my husband's words, I made up my mind to get a divorce. So, I returned to my life at my parents-in-law's house and began to be bullied by my mother-in-law again. At first, my husband protected me because I was still recovering from my illness, but only for 2 days. In the end, my husband began to side with my mother-in-law as before. Madison, I have a headache. Huh? Are you okay? Shouldn't you go to the hospital just in case? About a month after I was discharged, my mother-in-law complained of a headache. Recently, my mother-in-law has been saying that she has a headache every day. I'm not going to the hospital. You're treating me like a sick person right away. You're such a sarcastic person. Then don't bother telling me you have a headache. What do you want me to do? The moment I thought that, my mother-in-law clutched her head and collapsed on the spot. Are you okay? I desperately called out to my mother-in-law, who had suddenly collapsed, but there was no response. I was in a hurry and called an ambulance to my parents-in-law's house and was immediately transported to the emergency room. I told my husband that my mother-in-law had collapsed, and we headed to the emergency room. There is no immediate danger to her life, but the location of the stroke is bad, and some kind of disability may occur. My husband and I were told that before my mother-in-law's surgery. And so my mother-in-law's surgery began, and my husband and I waited in front of the operating room for it to end. I hope Mom is okay. At that moment, my brother-in-law arrived at the hospital. My husband had called him in a panic, saying that his mother had collapsed. They said there's no immediate danger to her life, but she might have some after effects. What? If that happens, you'll take care of her properly, won't you? No, Madison will take care of her, so it's okay. What did you just say? You want me to take care of your mother? That's not funny. I'm supposed to do it all by myself? Won't you help me? What can we do? My brother lives far away, and I have work every day. There's no one else who can take care of her except you. I absolutely refuse. I've already been through so much, and I can't take care of someone like that. It's impossible. If you won't take care of her, do you want a divorce? I don't mind at all. I had been thinking of telling him that I wanted a divorce, but he beat me to it. It was convenient that he said it himself. Fine. I don't mind getting a divorce. Why don't you and your 2 sons take care of your mother? I'll go get the divorce papers. I told my husband clearly that I wanted a divorce. Both my husband and brother-in-law were taken aback by the sudden announcement, but I ignored them and took a taxi to the court to get the divorce papers. When I returned to the hospital 10 minutes later, my husband and brother-in-law were arguing. If Madison isn't here, then you have to take care of her. I have work too. You're her son too, aren't you? It's not fair that I'm the only one doing anything. They were blaming each other for their own parents' problems. It was really pathetic. Excuse me for a moment. Here, I brought the divorce papers, so sign them quickly. What? You're really not going to regret this? Can you live without my income? That's none of your business. It's better than living with you and your mother. Since he had said it himself, my husband couldn't argue back. He reluctantly signed the divorce papers. I had been at the hospital, but since the surgery was successful, I left my husband and brother-in-law at the hospital and went straight to the court to submit the divorce papers. That's why I'm telling you to take care of her. You should come back and take care of her on weekends if you can't do it every day. I went back to my parents' house and packed my things. When I was sorting out my things, my husband and brother-in-law came back, shouting loudly. They were really noisy people. I had been sending my things little by little since I was discharged from the hospital so that my husband wouldn't find out, so there wasn't much to pack. After I finished packing up the things in the bedroom, I went to the living room where the 2 of them were arguing and started to pack up my things. Hey, about the divorce earlier, can't you reconsider? Honestly, I used to believe everything my mother said, but since you were hospitalized, I realized that she was pushing all the housework onto you. My husband looked at me and begged me not to divorce him. What was he talking about now? Our marriage was already over, and I had no intention of starting over. It's too late. If you had been on my side earlier, we might not have ended up like this. The divorce papers have already been submitted and accepted by the court. I'm a stranger to you, your mother, and your brother now. I'd like to get compensation for all the trouble you've caused me, but I don't want anything to do with you anymore. I told my husband everything I had been holding back until now. While we were talking, I finished packing all my things. Well, I won't be seeing you guys anymore. Goodbye. You two take care of your mother. I said that and left my in-laws' house. Husband and brother-in-law had a look on their faces like it was the end of the world when I left. Serves them right. They had been neglecting me and only protecting their mother all this time, so this was what they got. Now that I was free, I boarded the train with a clear mind and headed to my father's house. After an hour of being rocked by the train, I finally arrived at my father's house. Welcome back. For some reason, I couldn't stop crying at my father's blunt words. I was probably relieved to see my father, who was always the same, after being released from a difficult life. Don't cry. You've had a lot to deal with today. From now on, you should enjoy your life. Come on, let's eat. The usual taste that I had always eaten with my father was on the table. But today's meal tasted better than any other meal I had ever eaten. The next morning. Hey, Madison. Your brother-in-law is here. Tell him I don't want to see him. Don't say that. At least listen to what he has to say. I was awakened by my father and headed to the entrance in a bad mood. What does my brother-in-law want when he comes? I asked my brother-in-law what he came for, annoyed. What do you want? I can't talk about it here. Can you come to a nearby family restaurant? What on earth is it? Reluctantly, I headed to the family restaurant as my brother-in-law said. My husband was there too, and the three of us talked. Please. I talked to my brother and we want you to come back. We can't do anything without you. Madison, please. Here we go again. I said I didn't want to go back. Both of you, lift your heads. Why are you so obsessed with me? I said I wouldn't get involved anymore, didn't I? You two are strangers to me. I have no obligation to take care of your mother, do I? If you say something like this again, I'll sue you. I shouted at the two of them on the spot. They didn't say anything and just looked down. Is that all you wanted? I'm going home. So I left the family restaurant. On the way back to my parents' house, I set my husband and brother-in-law's phone calls to be rejected. They won't be able to contact me anymore. I don't know what happened to my husband and brother-in-law after that. They didn't come to my parents' house, and I spent peaceful days with my father. I learned my lesson about marriage from this incident. I don't know if I'll get married even if I have a boyfriend in the future. For now, I want to cherish the time I spend with my father, drinking every night, shopping freely, and sometimes traveling. That's more important to me.